Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the White Dragon podcast. It's your host, Ivan Yemeni, and I'm here today with another guest. This is an episode that's going to be fully in English for all my Spanish speakers. I'm sorry, but this is a good one, so you might as well just stay with us. I have with me Ken Conklin. He is the creator of something called Gravel Castle. That's something that we're going to talk about. Ken, thank you so much for coming to this podcast and talking about your journey. Let's start there.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for a cool conversation, and wherever you want to take it, go ahead and just ask away.
Okay. I really like to start giving people context of how are we here today, right? And it's funny because I was 2 weeks ago just walking to uni, and I received a text from a friend called Tet that you met online as well, and he's like, "Hey Eva, how's it going? I have your next podcast guest," and that's always an interesting experience to have. And I'm like, "Who is it?" And he starts sending me videos. It's this dude that was in Vice. I saw his video. I connected with him. You guys talked apparently. And then somehow my name came into the conversation, the fact that I do a podcast, and then here we are. So that's always like the crazy things of the universe. I like to call it just the synchronicities. So I'm just very grateful that we kind of connected through just the internet, YouTube, and content creating.
100%. I think it's so cool how friendships, connections, and whatnot can be created through just, finding someone to cross a video. And actually,
Right.
Tet had watched that Vice documentary that was released on us. And then the producer that reached out to me to film a potential Vice piece saw my YouTube channel, right? And I don't have a whole lot of subscribers, but it's cool how, when you spend that time really dialing in your voice and kind of what it is you stand for. This is kind of some advice for either my younger self or someone out there that maybe can, wants to put themselves out there, but is nervous or is going, "Hey, I don't have everything figured out yet." That's kind of been my, story and path. Is I've just been like, what, let me just go make a bunch of mistakes. And if it takes 100 mistakes to finally get to that somewhat dialed in, benchmark, well, cool, let's just knock these out, get them out of the way, and then make that progress. And so for me, just to give like a 30-second background of like Gravel Castle, it's essentially just a path for people to follow that is centered around being more disciplined and intentional. We provide a series of daily protocols, workouts, mentally, physically, and emotionally challenging workouts, as well as just a whole belief system and daily game of human optimization to upgrade to that really allows you to start looking at your life in a different way, but then also start writing a new chapter. Right now I'm currently living in Colorado, and I was in California for the past couple of years and whatnot. And what's cool about being out here is I also have a marketing business. So I have Gravel Castle, and then I have my DBA as GTC Powerhouse, right? So GTC for Gravel Castle, but that's just essentially a video production business. And we build websites and stuff for small businesses. Marketing's always been my passion. So pretty much everything that I have learned or are continuing to learn while being in the trenches, I kind of just apply that to my business and then utilize those strategies and whatnot. And it's kind of cool when, after a couple of years, you start to see a little bit of progress and momentum and whatnot.
I think you've touched on subjects that I already want to dig in. And before even starting this conversation, I was so interested in talking about like this journey, and like I'd like to call it in simple words, despite the fact that it's not simple whatsoever. It's like the creating content's journey, because I saw your video on Vice that, if I'm not mistaken, in your review of it, you said that it had been like recorded 5 months ago, but I guess that today it's like 6 months ago that documentary was recorded. So there's been definitely some time there. And now today you're in a position where you're trying to show more faces of yourself, or what you were, or what people saw you as in this video, in this documentary. You're a trainer, you're a coach. So there's this discipline that you portray. There's this hard work that you want to put across. But then it's so crazy how the more that we start putting ourselves out there with this genuine intention of showing who you are and showing all your vulnerability, your willingness to put yourself out there and make mistakes. That's something that you've talked about and expressed. It's crazy how the experience sometimes gets, I don't know what the word is, but like people start interpreting things like just not getting you the right way. Like I saw some of your comments, Gravel the Castle is maybe more towards men, but then people would criticize, like, why aren't you putting women in the table? And then you having to explain yourself, well, I just really want to talk about my own experience. So there's this crazy thing that happens when you start showing growth and then people are not resonating because your growth is not related to everyone. But when should it be related to everyone? Like, you're no God, you're no like authority that says, I have a truth that's going to help every single person in this planet, but somehow you get criticized about it.
I've learned a couple things throughout the past. I'd say, I mean, of course, 5 years, right? Everyone learns a lot throughout their life, but especially in the past year of kind of stepping into this figure that's really putting themselves out there in a way that either gets people to love me or hate me, right?
Yeah.
That's what I've kind of noticed, and there's no really in between, which is kind of funny. But no, it's like I've realized it's important for me to always, whenever I'm like sharing an experience or speaking with conviction about something that I know to be true for me, is make sure I emphasize, hey, this is based on my experience, and then also share that certain experience. Like right now, I have like a whole binder of just things I've learned throughout my time being in business, and I've done a couple different things, right? So I've kind of fallen down and experienced a good amount of lows in a couple different ways. But it's been valuable for me to now, as I'm like creating my curriculum for like my second phase, our whole breakdown of our businesses. We have a 30-day challenge where every 7 days you have an accountability coach that basically works with you to basically overcome the challenges that each week in the 30-day challenge basically gives you, so that way you can be challenged and pushed and learn something new about yourself. And then we have our retreats, and then after the retreat, that's when I'm going to be doing these group trainings and like intimate settings where everyone that was kind of connected at the retreat can also be part of another group that's more virtual, but then also like have a bunch of new curriculum and stuff. And so the point in saying this is, as I'm writing this new curriculum for phase 2, I'm starting to make sure every single time I have a document, I write down like my backstory, a quick little paragraph on how I learned this to, realize this and found this to be true for my life. And that's also something I try to do in my videos as well. You mentioned that you saw the psychedelic video, right?
Yes.
I think that style of storytelling is really what I'm trying to replicate moving forward. That same structure, but for all these different areas of my life and life experiences, because I'm able to, in my opinion, make it engaging, entertaining to watch, because there's a lot of B-roll cuts and just, it's kind of fast paced, but also like I'm just talking about my life, and then even diving into some of the stuff that some people might go, oh, I don't think I would want to share that, right? The insecurities and just the realness, right? I've found it to be like on a selfish note, kind of entertaining for me to make these videos, because then my friends and say, I have a girlfriend right now, right? She got to learn quite a bit about me just from watching my YouTube videos, right? Yeah. And so it's not like I have a video of hers or like, a bunch on YouTube to go watch to like get a full breakdown of her life and all that stuff. That's where the in-person conversation comes. But no, it's like cool, because it's like for me, I want to leave some sort of legacy, right? Just make the world better in some way. And I'm fortunate to have found a way to package like my mess into a path to whenever I'm in that kind of low point or mess, to get myself out of it. But then now too, other people that are in the same similar position, show them, hey, here's what I did. And I found it to be true that most guys that are like me, that like being pushed, right? That aren't like, oh, I don't ever want to go to the gym. It's just like, maybe there's that still like slight lack of being super disciplined, or even just like, inspired, motivated, whatever. Everyone goes through those funks. But for the most part, for like a guy that's like me, that strives to do better, but maybe wants to find new creative ways to really get uncomfortable, those are the people that I kind of speak to. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is a message that anyone can take away, and I try to emphasize that too, right? And so kind of the original thing that you mentioned of like, or I forgot like what the exact thing you said, but I also mentioned like, people are either love me or hate me. It's kind of just the way I put myself out there. It's like some people are just going to be so turned off by just self-improvement stuff. They're going to think I'm this or that. But then also that's where I try to go out of my way to showcase like my intentions and go, hey, I understand, like, I'm 24, I'm young, I have so much more to learn. And at the same time, I'm in an industry where there's a lot of people that, are kind of shady and just want to take advantage of people. And fuck, I'm the person talking to people who are at low points. I've a guy named Scott who is a real estate agent here in Colorado. I'm doing a bunch of like video marketing stuff for him. And he has 2 sons that struggled with alcoholism the past couple of years and actually tried to kill themselves, and both in the past year, unfortunately, right? And so I told Scott, like, hey man, like, have them, like, let's all get on a call and take them through this process that's really helped me just gain a better grip on just my emotions, my view on my life, and just overall increase my mental health, right? I think that's pretty much at the core of it, but also want to be careful of like kind of how I message that, because I'm not a therapist, right? I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I do view myself as taking that kind of role for myself through the tools and whatnot that I created, right? It's like become your own therapist. That's what I've realized to be true. And of course, some people just don't like that. So I have to acknowledge that too.
I mean, there's a lot that you said that I love, and it shows that, like, I feel it first takes a certain amount of courage to put yourself out there in social media, period. Like, you're exposed to the world in a way, and you're exposed to people's opinions in a way that in real life, there's maybe some filters, like I'm always surprised about the people who even write a comment. They like literally sit down and write a hate comment. Like in real life, like day to day, I don't feel like if you see someone walking down the streets, the odds of them like even telling you they hate you just straight out the bat is kind of low. So that's always interesting to have. But the fact that you still have been very headstrong in the sense like, listen, I'm just showing my experience. And I heard you in a podcast say that you use video as like your means to be like a diary. I find that fascinating because that's how people, and it's like understanding that it's not going to resonate with everyone or anyone, it's going to resonate with the right amount of people. It's just, it still surprises me that people judge you for and put you in a position that you weren't even in the first place. Like you're not telling yourself, or you're not calling yourself like, I am the know-it-all. I am just here to show you my experience. But then people come and judge you or saying, who's this person trying to, so that's just, I wanted to like acknowledge that, and the fact that at least I was able to see through Vice and just through your constant pursuit of changing yourself for the better, that we're all here just to share an experience, not to put myself onto you and say, this is how you should do it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for seeing that, right? But also like that to me just tells me that, you're a person that's growth minded and whatnot. And I think I even on the last podcast, I think it was, or maybe it was a conversation recently where I talked about the importance of humility. And like for me, that's why like when I receive like now I never really had like hate comments throughout the past couple of years, and it's not like I've put myself out there a whole bunch, but I've always just made like cool videos and whatnot. But no, especially with like the stuff I do now, I definitely receive again like a good amount of love and hate. But it's now I'm at least getting a little bit of love. Before I was just like, when I first started doing this, like I just mostly hate, and I was like, fuck, am I doing something wrong? But then that's where also there's the humility, but then also looking at, okay, well, is this just a troll that's just saying stupid stuff? That's why my reaction video to the Vice thing where I was like reading comments, I'm trolling them back. I'm like talking shit back, and it's funny because that's also my personality, right? I'm not just like a stoic professional, no goof around guy. Like I'm as equally goofy as I am as equally like just, stone face, just killer work mode guy, right? And so but like that's where like the hate comments, right? I love when someone actually leaves like a paragraph explaining what they don't like about me, right? Because then it helps me understand like, okay, well, let me step out of my shoes, look at it from their perspective. Heck, I even have a bunch of like tools and just frameworks for like getting over just like, negative situations in life, or just like, bad things that happen to you. It's like, it talks about like literally removing yourself from your emotions, from your body, looking at it from the view of someone else who is part of that. Like say if you go through a breakup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or someone just screws you over in business and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, this person's evil. And you're so full of just emotions and all this stuff. What I created that helped me with a couple different situations was a tool called negative experience reframing. And it's basically asking like, from your perspective, what happened? And then the
Right.
next question is from the perspective of someone who was involved, but so I'm involved in this situation, what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're actually trying to imagine yourself being in the position of that person, whether it's that boyfriend or girlfriend who just broke your heart, or that person that screwed you over in business, or
Mm-hmm.
the whatever it is, right? Um, when you start to be able to remove emotions from it, definitely be aware of your emotions. It's so important to be in tune with that for sure. It's not being non-emotional at all. And I've gone through that phase. So that's why I also know what's best is for me, right? Is knowing, hey, feel your emotions, recognize them, but also know like they don't control you. They're just a
Right.
human thing in your body. Like just feel them, understand them better. And then
Yeah.
also be able to step into a logical point of view to
Mm-hmm.
understand like what's just the facts of what happened, right?
Right.
Sometimes when we're in that emotional state,
It's hard.
it's hard for us to look at those facts and we just think,
Yeah.
oh, what I feel, that's the reality. But
That's
sometimes, yeah, it's
yeah.
not even like remotely close to what really happened. It's just
Right.
how you felt and then how you viewed it based on that emotion that was, pretty elevated.
Mm-hmm. See, well, this is just an example of how you kind of take things um I think in a smarter way. It just shows like your growth and like what you've been through, and the fact that you can even handle today hate comments, which is not an easy thing to do. I'm interested in touching Gravito Castle for a second. I'm interested in asking you what is a good leader for you, because you teach leadership, and that's something that you're in pursuit of building and helping people. So, what would you say takes to be a good leader?
Yeah. So I think it was yesterday or the day before. I
Mm-hmm.
actually, because I have a lot of thoughts going through my mind. I took a 16 personalities test
Okay.
recently, and I found out I'm a logician. I forgot what the like every letter is, but I know I'm a logician. It's like normally when someone's like, oh, I'm a Taurus, like there's all these
Mm-hmm.
like signs and whatnot. I'm a
Right.
bit skeptical. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really allow someone to tell me what I am. I'm more so like decide who I am. I'm in that headspace. But this is the first test I took where I'm like, oh damn, this is so spot on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so because I'm also the one choosing the answers, and so yeah, no, I realized that like my mind's always thinking. So what I just said a second ago of I was in the car and I thought about how when I was younger, I had idols, people I looked up to, right? When I was like, kid in high school, I looked up to like Arnold Schwarzenegger because I got into working out. So I'm like, I want to be a bodybuilder. So I had like all these photos of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
An
Yeah.
obsession, right? But it's like that's just people go through those phases.
My brother went through
But
the
now
same phase, so I understand. Yeah.
yeah, but now I don't have idols where like, last night I saw my favorite band. I shot a video for them and I'm gonna finish it after this and then send it to them. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
this guy that I've been listening or this band, Islander, I've been listening to for the past 2 years. It's like they're one of my favorite rock bands, like definitely top five. But it's like I just walked up to Mikey after, we got connected on Instagram. I messaged him and whatnot, and then went back to their van. I'm like, "What's up, Mikey?" And then just it's cool, right? Versus
Yeah.
when I was like 17, if I saw someone I really looked up to and admired, say for example, someone I saw as a leader, I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh my god," and get nervous, right? But
Right.
that's where you start to realize as you get older, or at least like progress on your path of either growth for yourself, individually, self improvement wise, or even just like career and that type
Right.
of progression. You realize like everyone's just a person. Everyone started somewhere. Some people
Yeah.
are started by having a good platform, but for the most part it's like you have to develop yourself, right? And the way you see yourself, your confidence. And so for me, what I view to be a leader that I've seen in a lot of different people that I consume is you practice what you preach, right? For me, I
Mm-hmm.
always had to do hard things, like cold showers, whatnot. I went about at least a year. maybe a year and a half almost, but at least a year pretty much of doing just strictly cold showers and maybe one hot shower a month, right? It sucked. That's where also like I was just in a different space. I was like still kind of like hurt from a couple traumatic experiences. And that was just my path to like get over it. It's just like become so hard, living kind of misery. I still had a good life and good, I lived in California, right? But I was just in a place where I needed to like punish myself, not because like I felt like I needed it, but more so like embrace this like suckiness and be able to just thrive in it. And I kind of developed that, right? But then, now I'm in a different place in my life and I'm kind of just, going out more with friends, not like going to the bar and drinking all that stuff, more like going to concerts or going on adventures, going on a sunrise hike when I'm not really a morning person. Like I'd rather go on a sunset hike.
Okay.
But just these things that I know are good, and I always end up, finishing those experiences with those people, going like, "Wow, that was so worth it," right?
Yeah.
And I realize I've kind of drifted off that original topic of what is a leader. To answer that question, a leader to me is someone, that like practices what they preaches, and genuinely strives to lead others, right? Like being a man for others or being a woman for others, right? That's super important because it shows that you're someone that tries to do good for your community, right? Our whole tagline is like, being a powerful, purpose-driven leader for your team, clients, families, and community. But also a big piece of that is being able to lead yourself. And I heard this from someone, I forgot who said this, but it was like, you can't lead others until you lead yourself. And, I've always kind of been in that like self-improvement headspace ever since I was 18 and I got into working out and stuff. But it wasn't until about a year and a half where I finally said like, okay, don't try to lead anyone until I've gone through this hard phase of leading myself. And maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't know. Time flies really fast. I realized as I get older. But like I just went through a time period where I went back to my dad's house, and I had previously been living a pretty cool life set up in Los Angeles and whatnot. But I just went into just pure suckiness and just started doing hard stuff to try to just develop my strength of intentionality and being able to say no in all these different situations, right? And then I finally got to a point where I'm like, damn, like I feel like I've really dialed this in. That's when I started, taking a couple guys through the process that I had done for myself, right? I didn't have a book at the time. I didn't have a whole process, nor was I even selling it. I was just saying, hey, give me 30 days with me to just push you and all this stuff. Because I want to create something, but I want to have, like, I want to know that what I've created and what I am going to be pursuing as a career path, like it's fucking dialed in and I've given it my heart and soul. And so that's what, I've done. It's like, I think a leader in whatever capacity, as a father, as a mother, a sister, brother, as a friend, or as an employer, is all about, recognizing like the actions that you take impact other people. And so when you recognize that, you start thinking in a different way. You start thinking about the other people that matter to you, and those kind of lead your decisions.
Right. I love something about your program is that I feel like you figured out on your own. I had a sense seeing in when you talked about going through these hard times and even doing the cold showers, for example, just as an example, you were like searching for something. And I feel like there was just this body and mind connection that I think is vital and so important. Like there's no way you can grow without having some sort of dominance or control over your emotions that you kind of alluded to. And I think that's so important, like getting to know yourself and proving to yourself either through hard activities, hard physical activities like you did in Vice, like that's how, at least how I saw you do, just proving yourself, just mind and body day by day, that there is something there. We both, just in different experiences, we'd like to talk about potential. That's something that I usually like to talk about and I'm interested in, just fascinated about people's potential. And I feel like you've discovered a way of tapping into potential just by proving to yourself time and time again, either through physical endurance or just some sort of activity. I remember the exercise that you did of digging yourself a grave in the documentary. I was so fascinated by that. And I think that also alludes to your experience with the psychedelics. Can we get into that?
Totally.
This notion of fearing death or not, depends on who's listening, if they actually fear death or not. But do you want to even explain the exercise you did with Taji in Vice?
Yeah, so just briefly with Taji, I had him dig a hole, bury himself. I blindfolded him too, so that way after like he'd been buried, so he can just really be in a like physically feeling of like, oh, I'm buried, right? I can't move, right?
Yeah.
But then also he can't see, and so it takes away those senses and it leaves him with his ability to think and perceive what he's hearing. So just really just hearing sense. And I'm guiding him through this little exercise, and I did this for myself. Like that's why, like I when I say I do everything that I have guys do, I literally buried myself one day at the beach. It was late at night. I like dug a big hole. I buried myself. I didn't have a blindfold, but I was just like walking my self through this exercise. And I remember when I got out of the sand and I opened my eyes again, like I felt so liberated. I ran into the cold ocean. It just felt amazing. But that was an exercise that just like, it's so important for your mind and body to be, in tune, but then also your soul, which I consider just, your heart, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what we do with like, for example, week 1 of our program is called Shaken Out of Apathy. And so I don't want to spoil all the exercises, but, we have stuff that is similar to what Taj went through, right? Where you really just start to tap into what I believe to be your soul through these emotional type experiences, because then that gives you new perspective of wow, like this is what really matters to me. Or maybe you start to get woken up to what's wrong in your life, what you really need to be working on, etc. And so then that way, when you go into like the other weeks or everything else we do, where we're more tactical, we're more, analytical and all those things, you start to have a new sense of purpose and reason why you're doing these things. And that's why, like, I always talk about like, there's a big difference between being motivated and being inspired. Being motivated for me has always been like, after an experience of being angry or sad, I now want to prove someone wrong, or maybe it's prove myself wrong, right? But I'm fired up, right? But inspiration for me is more like my soul and my heart of being happy and positive energy and being like, what's possible, right? And I have found a way to tap into both emotions basing on, again, like protocols, right? Like, when I'm in this headspace and I'm realizing I'm starting to go on a downward trend, I now have like things I can do to just get myself back up, right? And that's really just what Gravitas is all about. But yeah, no, I think it's so important for people to like do these crazy experiences. But that's where like, someone who's closed-minded will just hear, or again, maybe it's just out of context, right? So I totally acknowledge that. It's like, oh, this guy, buries people and makes money off it or whatever. It's like, of course that sounds, or like he yells at people, he hates his people and all this stuff. But then it's like, okay, well, maybe watch this interview and then have your judgment or whatever. And again, like someone doesn't have to go do their research on me to have a perception or whatever. But that's when it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go leave this, nasty comment and it's, XYZ. That's where for me as a person, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like go ahead. I've now gotten used to it. But then I also recognize that like, for me to actually take the time to like not just hear them out, but also like take the heart, like, okay, maybe I actually do need to change this or improve this or whatnot. If it's just someone who I can just tell hasn't taken the time to see what it is my real intentions are and like, why I do the things I'm doing. It's like, I don't know. They're
just not your people.
Yeah. And then I try to explain that to other people who are in that similar position that are struggling with that kind of confidence or whatever. It's like, I just say, hey, here's how I deal with it. And here's how I've realized like none of that stuff matters at the end of the day. Like, at the end of the day, the whole internet could hate me. They don't, fortunately. But if everyone did, right, I could go live in the woods, with a good woman and a dog and still live a good life. You know what I mean?
Why I brought this up in this exercise in particular is because I have in my own experience also question, like, what if I died today? Like, would I be happy with myself in essence? Have I been a good enough person and good enough daughter, good enough friend, etc. Right.
Yeah.
And that's some of the questions that you even did. And I feel like that's fascinating. And it's so rewarding to start even questioning at such a young age. Am I in the right track? Like a self-analysis, as soon as possible, because that kind of like redirects you into the path that you would like to live. But connecting to your psychedelic experience, something that I found so fascinating, you kind of divided it into two phases. One was drinking like with orange juice, and then the other one you kind of like, I feel like they injected something onto you.
Yeah, and I could say what it is.
Okay.
And that's also where like, I didn't in that video just because like I didn't know like YouTube's guidelines for like saying like the whole video is talking about, taking drugs essentially, right? But it's not, just for like the whole purpose of it. Again, that's why I think it's so important. People like, why is he doing this? Well, I talked about the whole thing and also prefaced beforehand, like, hey, don't do this, warning, disclosure. This is just me sharing my experience. But no, I had medical grade MDMA. And it was a very safe experience, right? So I had this guy taking me, he gave me, the medical grade MDMA. So I drank that, and then which essentially I guess is like Molly or ecstasy and whatnot. And so then, that was a fascinating experience and just took me through so many different, journeys alone with that. Plus, I had some amazing music. I had AirPods plugged in, some great classical music, but then also some like soundtracks to certain movies that are like classical, but then have like, even like I don't know what genre to call it, but point is incredible experience. And then actually ketamine, so that was shot in my shoulder.
Okay.
Which when I didn't like, I trusted this guy, and it was definitely 10 out of 10 experience, right?
Awesome.
But then when I told and I told him too, like, hey, I don't do drugs, like I don't even really smoke weed, like recognize I'm putting a lot of trust into you. Right. So I made that very clear.
Yeah.
But then when I told my buddy Nick, who was actually in the Vice documentary, the guy that had brown hair, a little longer, I don't know if but yeah, he was one of the guys. And I told him about that experience the next day. He's like, you did ketamine? And I was like, yeah, why? What is that?
Was that like a little hardcore for your lack of drugs? I guess
so. Probably. Yeah. And it's but it's like, with me, my personality, and also the work that I do on myself, right, to have a strong grip on my decisions, like I'm not afraid of me getting addicted to those types of drugs or something. Like I haven't done it since then. That was maybe 4 months ago or something like that. And, I haven't thought about even doing it since then, right? It was just for that purpose.
Right.
And, it was such a cool experience because that allowed me to like visualize and actually even feel like tapping into the end of the road, and also like my purpose as a human. But like not in like our society of like, what am I supposed to be doing, but more so just like my soul and just like the universe. It's such a weird thing to explain, but it's like, it's something I felt, and it was awesome.
Right. I have a question there, because in the second phase, when you get this hardcore drug injected to you, you said that you put an animation on that's like going crazy and like in a faster pace, and you said that you no longer fear death. And interestingly enough, I saw that you kind of like merged a picture of what I would say is like your chosen family, your friends. So I thought that was an interesting connection that I personally made, and I wanted to ask you. I alluded, or I just connected the dots to the sense that you today are in a place where you're surrounded by loved ones, and that you've probably found your people, despite the fact that there's nothing certain for tomorrow. And then hence, like, therefore, you being surrounded by your family and friends, which I can kind of comprehend that's probably one of your biggest values in life. You no longer fear death because you have it. But what would have been the experience if you happened to have done this experience and you were in a place where you didn't have family? Maybe you felt alone, or you felt like the loneliest you've ever had. Like, do you feel like there's a connection there with maybe the people that you've created and have like found in your life and the relation to death? I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, like fulfillment, I think, is important, because that is one of the reasons why I would be able to say like I don't want to die. So like for me, I just accept, like, if again, like, you don't really know, and that's why like I don't want to just say, oh, if I was in this position, I would do this, as in like, if I had to go sacrifice myself to save a bunch of people, right? Like I genuinely want to just do good, right? But I would also look at, hey, how can I save these people while also staying alive, right?
Right.
But my whole reason for saying this is like, overall, I've come to accept that, hey, I've actually like lived a good life so far. And fuck, I'm 24, and I
Yeah.
want to live a lot longer than however I'm you know
Mhm.
how much the amount I've loved life I've lived so far. And so but like I've genuinely experienced so many great things. I have good people in my life, and where like my emotional or like soul, not emotional, like soul cup
Right.
feels pretty full of like, hey, I've experienced some dark moments and I've
Mhm.
seen the beauty of that, and I've experienced some high moments and I've seen the beauty of that.
Mhm.
So like I definitely try to go into every day going, hey, be as present as possible. Enjoy the little things, these little conversations
Right.
with, each of the people I care about in my life. They're great. Or
Mhm.
even just new people, right? People I
Mhm.
wouldn't say I care about because I don't know, but like generally like I'm entertained and like I find, enjoyment from talking to people, but not just lame conversations, that with like about nothing. Like for me, I'm not a big small talk person, like, oh, what do you
Me
do for
neither.
fun? I'm more
Yeah.
so just like, let's talk about just what's your purpose? Like
Right.
what's the shit that's screwing you up every
Mhm.
day that you just really need to find a way to get over, right? Those are the
Right.
conversations I enjoy. And so when I meet someone that's able to open up and be that vulnerable
Mhm.
person and have that conversation, that's where I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, I like this person. And it doesn't matter what they look like, where they come from, if they're similar to me, where they like working out or anything. It's just another human where I can see the beauty in their soul. But that's where it's like, if not someone's not able to open up and be that vulnerable person, have like
Right.
genuine connection and conversation, that's where I'm
Mhm.
like, well, then I can't see that beautiful, real you. So then, like, you're just kind of putting on that mask, and that's what most people in society do. And that's also why I created what I did, because you go through things to feel these emotions to where you want to share, and then I create that safe kind of environment to
Mhm.
be around other people that can talk about things, so you can both step into teacher of, hey, you're hearing someone go through a problem and you can kind of share what you think is a good
Mhm.
solution, but then also you're able to be that student who's sharing and then have other people kind of give you their perspective. But again, these are all people that live by the same core values and are
Right.
on that same kind of overall path, even though it
Mm.
looks different for everyone.
Mm.
um but yeah, no, and that's why like it's cool, like the conversation that you and I had, it's like I could instantly tell like, oh, this is a very cool individual, like I'm excited for this
Thank you.
conversation and this podcast, because yeah, and then that's why like hopefully some people watching this, maybe someone that was doing research on me can now go subscribe and follow your podcast and hear more conversations to you, or someone that's been listening to your podcast and listening to these guests and resonates with what I talk about, to then go check out our YouTube channel, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's where it's cool, because you never know where, again,
Well, life takes you. Yeah.
yeah, and then like what conversation can have
An
or can be
impact.
had through whatever, like just the ways that the things connect. It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I'm interested in asking you, when did you realize that staying present was something important?
I actually don't know the answer to that question.
No,
I feel like in the past,
it's a hard question.
maybe when I've had two types psychedelic experiences. One actually, like, so in that video that you saw,
Hmm.
that photo you're talking about with like me
Hmm.
and a bunch of my friends, that was
Hmm.
actually when I took mushrooms in Big Sur,
Okay.
California, which was like such a beautiful experience. But like, like Nick Vaughn, one of my best friends, right? And then a couple other really good friends, and then just a cool group of people that was with us that day.
Hmm.
And it was awesome because like when I did that mushroom experience, I was in this like such a beautiful environment. Like if you get a chance, I'll send you the Instagram photo, or
Okay.
everyone on here too. Maybe I'll like send the Instagram photo so you guys can look at it or something. It's
Yeah.
just basically a photo of me with a bunch of people, and the environment I was in was amazing. I saw a seal, and seals are just such incredible creatures, right? Like their eyes are completely black and glossy, right? And this thing's just like flopping up to me while I'm,
Right.
on mushrooms, and I'm looking at it. I'm probably like 10 feet away from it,
Hmm.
and it was just such a wild experience. And that made me realize, hey, you know what, I'm tired of waiting for until I get to this point in my business or this point in my career, or following or whatever, that's when I'm going to then start traveling. I was just like, no, I need to start traveling now. I'm like, I'm ready to go and live my life and just go do some amazing things. And so that was when I decided, like being present, for my opinion, is also like just doing those things you want to do now instead of waiting. That's like maybe a different way of seeing what being present means. But that was back in like October of this year or of last year. So really like, maybe 6-7 months. And so I feel like while I've been enjoying life for the most part for the past like 5-6 years, because I've just followed my dreams, right? Worked towards that vision, but it hasn't always been fun or beautiful. It's been dark at times, but now I'm actually at a point where I'm like, I don't even like, I definitely feel like when something bad happens, I'm like, oh, this sucks. But I'm also like, I don't hold a grudge or anything. I'm just like, okay, that's just how the universe works. Like I literally like have that just understanding right away when something happens. But that doesn't mean I want like, really bad things to happen. So
yeah,
knock on wood, right? But no, yeah. So I think just anyone watching this, like for me, I've realized that I've found so much happiness and recognizing that. But also like, it's, if someone gave me this exact advice or like, if I heard this conversation that we're having right now, when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I wouldn't have taken it because I didn't feel like I achieved anything or, really, I had so much that I was still working towards. But again, that was from motivation of being at a low point, right? But then now that I'm also older, I recognize like, that was like internal work I had to do on myself. But then the day, it's like I was able to do that internal work on myself and feel like, I'm able to not forgive myself, but I accept myself. I think like accept myself for who I am and love myself. Yeah, self-love. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But also I still like have also known like, hey, I've worked towards a lot of things. And so, I think it's like that kind of two-way streak of like, yeah, recognizing like, hey, life is short, just try to enjoy as much as you can. But I'm also that disciplined person and also like very ambitious, and I'm always wanting to have a high standard for myself in terms of like what I'm able to produce or work towards or growth wise. And so I don't know, it's like that's where I just know someone that's like me, like I can have this advice, but it's like for someone that's at say a very low point or whatnot, like in a different headspace, they can't, I would assume, like go do that psychedelic experience and come out of it feeling the same way, or do certain things that maybe meet a bunch of the guys that go through Gravity Castle doing a daily basis to then have that same outcome, because it's that belief system too. If you have a different operating system mentally that you use to go about your life every day, well then you're gonna have a different way of seeing everything. But even you can be in the same, like next to each other looking at the same environment, but just your paradigm's completely different.
Yeah. So I think that's the staying present, the fact that you kind of reframed it into, I take it as a practice, like you can remind yourself every day to be present, because there's going to be a point in time where you forget, and that maybe you're cutting corners and not being true with yourself, or maybe not being as clear as like, I've been putting this one thing off, this one goal of mine off, or, I've been pushing the date to start, I don't know, just to say, for example, a diet or whatever, enroll in a class or whatever you want to call it. So being present is also of like cutting through your own bullshit, I like to call it personally. That's a practice that I kind of do on my own. So that's pretty cool. I'm interested in asking you, what are you currently working on? Because I think that you being a role model, a leader, is also being a work in progress. And the fact that you've said that you like to share your learning experiences, your experiences in general, I'm interested in what maybe have you been working on since maybe the Vice documentary that people may not know of, or that like kind of like situates us in the present, Ken?
Yeah, so I'd say I have three different things, right? One is I've actually been getting into videography a lot more, where like, I love making videos for my YouTube channel, but also I'm now diving into getting creative with, artists like in the music space.
Awesome.
Recorded the little show recap for that band last night. But then also I'm shooting a music video in likely a week or two of a rapper that's local out here, right? And and like for like so like I have my price points, and like I'm definitely striving to crush it in business. I love to scale out a video production agency out here where I'm not even shooting myself. Like I always actually will a little bit because I love it. But in terms of like having to, for fulfillment wise,
Right.
I want to get a team of videographers out here and web designers, and just like build a awesome agency. And then of course build my compound of Gravel the Castle in the woods, in the mountains, on a lake, where I'm able to have these retreats and just
Awesome.
and a beautiful retreat center, right? So like I'm working towards developing that skill set with the video stuff, and just because I love it, I want to go on tour with an artist, like either a rapper or an EDM artist. Not because that's like the career path, but more so just like that would be fun
Experience.
Like, that's where like I just want to have that experience, and it'd just be so cool. But then also I have guys I'm taking through my 30-day challenge, and then I'm gonna start hosting some retreats out here in Colorado. And then after that, I have like my whole like basically whole entire 3-phase journey of Gravel the Castle pretty much being finalized and just like written out, so that way I have a clear goal and vision, but then also can show guys like, hey, look, phase 3 isn't even created yet. Phase 2 is like we're finalizing and getting things rolling with that. Phase 1 is just perfect, solid. That's why like I just want to get people to experience Gravel the Castle. It's not expensive when it comes into the phase 1, right? But I'm definitely gonna have some more like for guys that want that one-on-one, just like constant experience, and just like I definitely want to have my expertise and growth leveled up a ton. I definitely think I'm highly qualified, and again, like I practice what I preach. I document everything I do for someone to go like, okay, this is a guy that I think could actually help me or give me some value in some way. I definitely try to showcase that through my marketing of just me doing stuff, right? But then also reviews, case studies. Like I'm starting to put more effort into like creating little movies. So instead of a boring review of just someone filming a testimonial on their selfie camera, just talking, hey, Gravel Castle is great, blah blah blah. Now I'm like starting to have B-roll and actually like even going out to clients with a camera and like documenting their life and whatnot. So like for people that want to know what I'm up to right now, it's like, hey, I definitely have some really cool productions in a lot of different
areas,
lanes coming out on like my YouTube channel. I'm gonna try to get on like definitely more podcasts. I love that. I have one or two that I think would be like huge for my career. And career isn't just like like following. Like for me, I would love to just be doing my retreats, right, and traveling the world, and making these awesome YouTube videos that reach 40, 50,000 people every time I upload, right? And then view wise. So I'd love to have like 400,000 subscribers on YouTube. That would be amazing. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, right? But I definitely now think like I found my style, I found my lane, my message. And so it's just a matter of keep on just tapping into my soul and writing the script for whatever, recording that voiceover, putting it over that footage that I filmed, and then releasing those productions. And I think the next one I'm going to upload is going to be really cool. I don't know what the full message is yet, but the footage is phenomenal. I went on this road trip through Utah, California, and New Mexico. Just these really interesting looking environments in the West Coast. So I hope you watch it, and then let me know what your thoughts are when I do upload it.
I will. Awesome. Before we finish this podcast, Ken, I usually end it with the same question I ask everyone. And it's a complex one, so if you take your time, it's all good. Like that's kind of the point. I've been recently questioning people, what do they think is to live an authentic life? So I'll ask you the question, what do you do in your day or throughout your life that you feel you live an authentic life, therefore?
Yeah, well, just tapping into my soul, right? I have my audits and assessments that I do on a like monthly consistent basis. But then also I have my daily like non-negotiable audit of integrity scorecard where I have like my 4 domains: fuel, state, connection, and business. Same thing as like health, wealth, love, and happiness, right? We've all heard that. But you know, I score myself on a scale of 1 to 5 in each of those categories every single day, no matter what.
Wow.
And then I write down my intention for tomorrow. But then also the reason why I gave myself that score, right? So like for fuel, that's what I put into my body to energize it, but then also training it to be robust and nimble and just be athletic, right? And feel good and have energy. So what I do is like I write down, you know, I gave myself a 4 because, you know, I had a killer workout and I ate a lot of good food. Well, I didn't eat as much food as I probably could have. Like my goal is to bulk, right? So I'm like, hey, I only got, you know, a couple thousand calories. So like for some people, they'd be like, oh my God, I ate too many calories. For me, I'm like, I didn't eat enough. But no, it's like, you know, I score myself in those things. And then just like, you know, now that I've done all this work, like I'm pretty in tune with my internal voice, right? Which I consider to be either God, the universe, or my future self. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I pray every day. I pray to God. I believe in God, but I just don't have a label, right? I don't know if that's Jesus, Buddha, whoever. Or, you know, like I just have that universe.
A God. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I think like, you know, it's important to have that, right? Because I don't know, like for me, I know God to be true. So like when I listen to that internal voice, that's me living an authentic life. That's me doing what Ken Conklin is meant to be doing. Yeah, we're never gonna have like a clear step by step, you know, step 1 to step 2043, right? We're just gonna have these overall understandings and lessons throughout our life. And it's up for us to act upon those discoveries and lessons we've learned to, 1, always be a better person, but then 2, try to do something that will make this world better than how we found it. That's what I believe to be living an authentic life.
Wow. I like that answer a lot. And I like what you mentioned of the inner voice. I feel like that's so key, and it sometimes get lost in translation because now so many people are like, are you religious? Are you not? Are you spiritual? Are you not? But like, no matter what, you know, your answer is that there's something inside of you that you should be listening that maybe you're not. And that's 100%. Interesting how I definitely 100% agree that leads you to your authenticity, because maybe I feel like as we grow older, there's a lot of I go back to the Shrek metaphor, which is like the peeling of the onion.
Shrek metaphor. Cool.
Yes. You're never going to forget it. I tell you, it's peeling the onion until you find your true self. And that onion, the first layers are just probably conditioning from society or from what people told you have to be. But then as you grow older and you start feeling all these like internal struggles, you're like, what's happening to me? I don't like living this life, whatever. All these like down times, it's about peeling and starting to really question who you are. And like, even if you, whoever's listening, you want to go dig yourself in the beach and experience, you know, what it's like to maybe act like you're dead and like evaluate what's going on, go do so. But I feel like it's through these conversations that we start recognizing paths and ways of how to lead a better life. And that's just authenticity and listening to your inner voice. So I like that. I like to end the podcast there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I thought we had an awesome conversation.
I thought so too. Ken, can you give us just your handles? Where can people find you on social media?
I mean, most of my stuff, YouTube is what I care about most, right? Like, you know, if you resonate with the conversation we've had, right, you're more than welcome to go to gravel2castle.com. That's where you can just, you know, fill out a form or even just look at some reviews or even, have our social links, right? At Gravel to Castle, or, you know, Ken Conklin with the C, Conklin. I try my best to make sure that no matter where you search Gravel to Castle, Ken Conklin, like you'll be linked to everything else. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, but no, I think, I mean, start with our videos, right, on YouTube, because that's where you can just hopefully, you know, learn more about me and also see more of our, you know, impact that we have on guys that go through it. Because I have a bunch of awesome, cool, you know, little case study videos, little short stories. But then now I'm starting to really just like, I want to take that to the next level, create like actual mini movies that are like super fun to watch where you don't even realize it's a review. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see each other in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.